G'day, legends. Jack D. Dingo here. Pull up a stump, grab a cold one, and let the fire warm your bones. Tonight we're not just telling tales, we're digging deep into the very dirt beneath our feet, into secrets so old they predate the gum trees and the red dust itself. We're talking about the whispers of a land that's seen more sunrises than you've had hot dinners, a place where time itself seems to slow down, and the very rocks hold ancient memories. We're heading to the Pilbara, mate, a place that'll grab you by the scruff of the neck and shake you till you see things differently. And tonight, we're gonna unravel the mystery of the singing rocks. You might think it's just a bit of a yarn, a bushman's tall tale, but trust old Jack, there's more to it than meets the eye. This ain't just about geology or some fancy scientific explanation. This is about the soul of the land, the heartbeat of Australia, and a melody that's been humming for billions of years. So, settle in, because the Outback's got a song to sing, and it's a tune you won't soon forget. Chapter 1. The Outback's Ancient Hum Rito. Let's set the scene, eh? The Pilbara. Now, if you haven't been there, picture this. A land so vast, so ancient, it makes your backyard look like a postage stamp. It's Western Australia's beating heart, a place where the earth bleeds red and the sky stretches out forever, a canvas of brilliant blue by day and a million diamonds by night. It's a land of extremes, mate, scorching heat that'll cook an egg on the bonnet of your ute, and then nights that can chill you to the bone. But don't let the harshness fool you. There's a raw, untamed beauty here that gets under your skin, a quiet power that hums beneath the surface. Now, most folks know the Pilbara for its iron ore, billions of tons of the stuff, dug out of the ground, shipped off to the world. It's what keeps the country ticking, fills the coffers, builds the cities, and fair dinkum, it's an impressive operation. Those massive trains snaking across the landscape, loaded down with the red gold. But long before any prospector set foot here, long before the first pickaxe hit the dirt, the Pilbara was already rich. Not with minerals you could put in your pocket, but with something far more valuable. Time. We're talking about the Pilbara Craton, one of the oldest pieces of crust on Earth, mate. 3.6 billion years old. Just let that sink in for a moment. That's older than most of the mountains, older than the dinosaurs, older than pretty much everything you can imagine. It's a living, breathing museum of Earth's earliest days, a place where the very rocks tell a story of creation, of primordial oceans and volcanic fire. And it's in this ancient, silent landscape that our story truly begins. Old Jack. He's always been a man of action, a bloke who trusts what he can see, touch, and more importantly, what he can sell. I've chased treasures from the dusty ruins of forgotten civilizations to the icy peaks of the Himalayas. Always for the thrill, sure, but mostly for the coin. So when I first heard whispers of singing rocks out in the Pilbara, I scoffed. Sounded like a bushman's yarn, a bit of folklore to keep the tourists amused. But then a funny thing happened. I stumbled across an old leather-bound journal tucked away in a dusty antique shop in Perth. Belonged to some eccentric old geologist from way back, a bloke named Professor Alistair Finch. And in amongst his meticulous notes on mineral compositions and geological strata, there were these strange, almost poetic entries about harmonic vibrations and the land's own melody in the Pilbara. He even had a crude, hand-drawn map marking a spot deep in the ranges, a place he called the Echoing Gorge. Now, I'm no academic, but a good mystery always gets my blood up. And the idea of rocks that sing, well, that's a treasure unlike any other, isn't it? Not for its weight in gold, but for its sheer uniqueness. Imagine the headlines, the exhibitions, the possibilities. So I packed my gear, filled the old ute with enough fuel to cross a small country, and pointed its nose towards the red heart of the Pilbara. The journey itself was a test, mate. Days of bone-jarring corrugated roads, dust so thick you could chew it, and a sun that beat down like a blacksmith's hammer. But with every kilometre, the landscape changed, becoming more rugged, more ancient, more alive. The air itself seemed to hum with something, a low, almost imperceptible vibration that I first put down to the old Utes engine, or maybe just the heat playing tricks on my ears. But it was there, a subtle thrum, a whisper from the deep past. I set up camp near a dry creek bed, the silence of the night broken only by the chirping of crickets and the distant howl of a dingo. As I lay there staring up at a sky so full of stars it made your head spin, I heard it again. Not a distinct melody, not a song you could hum, but a deep, resonant vibration, a low-frequency hum that seemed to come from the very ground beneath my swag. It wasn't the wind, mate. The air was still. It wasn't the ute. The engine was cold. It was the land itself, breathing, humming, whispering secrets that had been held for billions of years. And in that moment, old Jack Dingo, the cynical treasure hunter, felt a prickle on the back of his neck. This wasn't just a legend. This was something real, something ancient, and something that was calling to me. My pragmatic mind was still trying to find a scientific explanation, a way to bottle it, to sell it. But deep down, a different kind of curiosity was stirring. A curiosity about the land itself and the secrets it held, far beyond any material wealth. This was just the beginning of the hum, mate. The first note in a symphony I was only just beginning to hear. And it was leading me deeper into the heart of the Pilbara than I ever intended to go. You can bet your last dollar on that. This ancient hum, it was more than just a sound. It was an invitation. And old Jack, well, he's never been one to turn down an invitation to a good mystery. Not when there's a story to be told, and maybe, just maybe, a new kind of treasure to be found. The Pilbara was about to show me its true colors and its true voice, and I was ready to listen. Or so I thought. But what exactly was that hum? Was it just a trick of the mind, or something far more profound, something that defied all logic and science? And what secrets did Professor Finch's journal truly hold about this echoing gorge? You'll have to stick around, Cobber, because the Pilbara's got more than just red dust to share, and old Jack's journey is only just beginning. What happens when a hardened treasure hunter comes face to face with a mystery that can't be bought or sold? The answer might just surprise you. Stay tuned, because the next chapter takes us even deeper into the heart of the dreaming, where the whispers of the past become a roar you can't ignore. You won't want to miss it. Trust me on that one. Chapter 2. The Whisper of the Dreaming. So there I was, mate, old Jack Dingo, a bloke who'd always measured wealth in ounces of gold or the glint of a rare gem, now chasing a hum in the middle of nowhere. My scientific mind, or what little of it I possessed, was still trying to rationalize it. Heat haze, electromagnetic interference from some buried iron ore deposit, anything but what my gut was telling me, that this land, this ancient red heart of Australia, was alive in a way I'd never encountered. And that hum, it wasn't just a sound, it was a call that was leading me straight into the heart of something far older, far more complex than any geological formation. My journey took me deeper, past the familiar mining tracks and into country that felt different. The air itself seemed to thicken with history, and the silence, when it fell, wasn't empty, but pregnant with unspoken stories. That's when I started seeing the signs. Not road signs, mind you, but subtle markers. A pile of stones here, a faint track worn smooth by countless bare feet there. Signs that told me I wasn't alone, and that this land, despite its apparent emptiness, was well and truly occupied. Not by prospectors or tourists, but by the true custodians, the Aboriginal people. Now, I've had my share of run-ins with traditional owners over the years. Usually, it's a clash of cultures, a misunderstanding of boundaries, or a dispute over some ancient site I've inadvertently stumbled upon. My approach has always been direct, pragmatic. Show respect, sure, but keep your distance and don't let sentiment get in the way of business. But out here, In the Pilbara, that old playbook felt thin, like a worn-out map in a landscape that demanded a whole new way of navigating. I eventually found myself on the outskirts of a small, traditional community, nestled amongst some ancient ghost gums. The kind of place that doesn't show up on any tourist map, and for good reason. As I pulled up, the dust from my ute settling around me like a red shroud, a few kids stopped their play, their eyes wide and curious. Then, an elder emerged from one of the humpies, a woman with eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of millennia and a presence that commanded respect without a single word. Her name, I'd later learn, was Marley, and she wasn't impressed with old Jack Dingo. "You're a long way from home, white fella," she said, her voice like the rustle of dry leaves, but with an underlying strength that made me stand a little straighter. "What brings a man like you to our country?" I tried my usual charm, the disarming smile, the casual explanation about being a researcher interested in unique geological phenomena. But Mali just looked at me, her gaze piercing right through the facade. "Our country is not a phenomenon to be studied or a treasure to be taken," she replied, her voice firm. "It is our mother, and her songs are not for sale." Songs. There it was again. The word that kept popping up, linking the hum I'd heard to something far beyond my understanding. Marley then spoke of the songlines, the dreaming tracks that crisscross this land, invisible to the untrained eye, but as real as any road to those who know how to follow them. She spoke of how the land itself was sung into existence by the ancestral beings, and how every rock, every creek, every hill held a piece of that original song. These weren't just stories, mate. They were living maps, encyclopedias of knowledge, passed down through countless generations. And the singing rocks. They weren't just geological oddities. They were sacred places, places where the veil between the physical world and the dreaming was thin, where the ancestors' voices could still be heard. I listened, half skeptical, half fascinated. My pragmatic mind was screaming for scientific proof, for something I could measure, quantify. But there was something in Marley's eyes, in the quiet conviction of her voice, that resonated deep within me. She spoke of Murujuga, the Burrup Peninsula, home to the largest collection of ancient rock art in the world. Thousands upon thousands of engravings etched into the very stones, telling stories that stretched back tens of thousands of years. Each image, each line, she explained, is a note in the land's song, a memory, a lesson. It was a history written not in books, but in the very fabric of the earth, a living testament to a culture that had endured for longer than any European civilization could even dream of. That night, as I lay in my swag, the hum from the land seemed different. It wasn't just a low thrum anymore. It felt like a chorus, a multitude of voices, ancient and resonant, weaving a tapestry of sound that spoke of creation, of journeys, of life and death. Marley's words had opened a crack in my cynical armor, a tiny window into a world I'd always dismissed. I realized then that my search for singing rocks was about to become something far more profound than a mere treasure hunt. It was becoming a journey into understanding, into respect, and into a history that was far richer than any gold mine. But how deep did this rabbit hole go? And what would it cost old Jack Dingo to truly listen to the whisper of the dreaming? That, Cobber, was a question I was only just beginning to ask myself, and the answer, I suspected, would change everything. Stay with me, because the next chapter, where science meets spirit, is where things really start to get interesting. You won't want to miss it. Trust me on that one. Chapter 3, The Science of the Song. After my encounter with Marley, the Pilbara started to feel less like a hunting ground and more like a classroom. My old ways of thinking, the ones that had served me so well in dusty bazaars and forgotten tombs, felt inadequate. The hum was still there, sometimes faint, sometimes strong, But now, instead of just a curiosity, it felt like a challenge to understand, not just to acquire. And that's where Professor Alistair Finch came back into the picture. I tracked him down to a makeshift research station, a collection of tents and high-tech gear nestled in a rocky outcrop. Finch, a bloke who looked like he'd spent more time in libraries than in the bush, was surrounded by oscilloscopes, seismic sensors, and all manner of gadgets that looked like they belonged on a spaceship. He was a walking encyclopedia of geology and acoustics, and he was just as obsessed with the singing rocks as I was, albeit from a purely scientific angle. "Ah, Mr. Dingo," he greeted me, peering over a pair of spectacles perched precariously on his nose. "I presume your entrepreneurial spirit has led you to the same elusive phenomenon." I cut straight to the chase. "Professor, I've heard the hum, and I've spoken to the traditional owners. They say these rocks sing because they're alive with the dreaming. You got a scientific explanation for that?" Finch chuckled, a dry, academic sound. "The dreaming, as you call it, is a fascinating cultural construct, Mr. Dingo. But sound, my dear fellow, is physics, vibrations, resonance, and the Pilbara, with its unique geological makeup, is a natural symphony orchestra." He then launched into a lecture that, to be honest, went a bit over my head. He spoke of the Pilbara Craton, its ancient hard rock Archean geology, and how billions of years of erosion had sculpted the landscape into incredible formations. He explained how wind, funneling through narrow gorges and over specific rock structures, could create natural acoustic phenomena. He even mentioned something about internal fractures in certain rock types, acting like natural tuning forks. He was convinced that the singing was a purely mechanical process, a grand natural instrument played by the wind. "We've ruled out phonolite, of course," he declared, tapping a geological map. "That particular igneous rock, known for its metallic ring when struck, isn't prevalent here. So we're looking at other factors, the composition of the iron-rich banded iron formations, the unique crystalline structures, the way the rock weathers. It's all about the physics of sound propagation through these ancient materials." We spent days together, Finch with his instruments, me with my bushcraft. He'd set up sensors, measure frequencies, analyze waveforms. I'd watch, fascinated, as the graphs on his screens danced with patterns that, to him, were scientific data, but to me were starting to look like melodies. He could explain how the sound was produced, the mechanics of it, but he couldn't explain the feeling it evoked, the sense of ancient presence, the almost spiritual resonance that Marley had spoken of. He was trying to dissect a song, while I was starting to feel its soul. One evening, after a particularly frustrating day of inconclusive readings, Finch packed up his gear, muttering about anomalous frequencies. "It's almost as if the sound changes," he mused, more to himself than to me. "Not just in intensity, but in character, as if it's responding." That's when I saw it. A faint, almost imperceptible shimmer in the air, just above a particularly large, smooth rock. It lasted only a second, but it was there, and as it faded, the hum intensified, a deep resonant thrum that vibrated through the ground and up into my very bones. Finch, engrossed in his readings, missed it, but I didn't, and in that moment, the scientific explanation, as elegant as it was, felt incomplete. It was like trying to explain the beauty of a sunset by listing the chemical composition of the atmosphere. It missed the point entirely. My internal conflict was brewing, mate. Part of me, the old Jack, wanted to believe Finch. A scientific explanation meant control, meant a way to harness this phenomenon, perhaps even to replicate it. Imagine a concert hall filled with the sounds of the Pilbara, generated by a machine. The possibilities for profit were endless. But the other part, the part that had listened to Mali, the part that had felt the ancient hum deep in its core, knew there was something more, something sacred, something that couldn't be measured by a machine or explained by a formula. It was a battle between the head and the heart, between the tangible and the spiritual, and the Pilbara, in its silent, humming wisdom, was forcing me to choose a side. What would I do with this knowledge? Would I exploit it, or would I protect it? And what would happen if I chose the wrong path? The answer, Cobber, was about to become very clear. Stay tuned, because the deeper we dig, the more secrets the Pilbara reveals. And some of them are more powerful than any man can imagine. You won't want to miss what happens next. Trust me on that one. Chapter 4. Echoes of the Past. That hum, mate. It was more than just a sound, it was a question. A question that echoed through the ancient landscape of the Pilbara, asking me to look beyond the surface, beyond the scientific explanations, and into the very soul of the land. Professor Finch, bless his cotton socks, was still chasing frequencies and mineral compositions, convinced that if he just found the right equation, he could unlock the secret of the singing rocks. But I was starting to see that the secret wasn't in the numbers. It was in the stories. And the stories, out here, were as old as time itself. My journey with Finch, despite our differing approaches, was leading us deeper into the Pilbara's heart. We were in a remote section of the Chichester Range, a place where the rock formations twisted and turned like ancient petrified giants. The red earth here seemed to pulse with an energy, a quiet power that was almost palpable. It was a place where the wind, when it blew, didn't just whistle. It seemed to carry whispers, faint and fleeting, like echoes from a distant past. And the hum. It was almost constant here, a low, resonant thrum that vibrated through the soles of my boots. One sweltering afternoon, while Finch was busy setting up some newfangled sonic mapping equipment, I wandered off, drawn by an inexplicable urge. I found myself at the mouth of a narrow, almost hidden gorge, its entrance obscured by a tangle of spinifex and ancient, gnarled mulga trees. The air inside was cooler still, and the hum was stronger here. A deep, almost mournful drone that seemed to emanate from the very walls of the canyon. It was a sound that resonated not just in my ears, but in my chest, a feeling of immense age and profound mystery. As I ventured deeper, the gorge opened into a vast, natural amphitheater, its walls soaring hundreds of feet above me, carved by millennia of wind and water. And there, on the smooth, ochre-colored rock faces, was something that stopped me dead in my tracks. Not just a few random markings, but a sprawling gallery of ancient rock art, thousands upon thousands of engravings, petroglyphs depicting figures, animals, and symbols that seemed to dance across the stone. This wasn't just art, mate. This was a library, a chronicle of a people who had lived and breathed in this land for tens of thousands of years. The sheer scale of it, the intricate detail, it was breathtaking. And as I stood there, surrounded by these silent witnesses to history, the hum intensified, morphing into something more complex, almost like a chorus of voices, ancient and resonant. I reached out, my fingers tracing the outline of a kangaroo, its form rendered with a simplicity that belied its power. And as my fingertips brushed the stone, a jolt went through me. Not an electric shock, but something deeper, a sudden, overwhelming rush of images and sensations. I saw flashes of ancient campfires, heard the rhythmic beat of clapsticks, felt the warmth of 1,000 suns on my skin. It was like the rock itself was downloading its memories directly into my mind, a torrent of history and culture that overwhelmed my senses. I saw figures dancing, hunting, performing ceremonies, their faces painted with ochre, their voices raised in song. And the songs, mate, they were the hum, the very melody that resonated from the rocks. It wasn't just a geological phenomenon. It was the echo of a living, breathing culture imprinted on the very fabric of the land. When I came to, I was sprawled on the ground, my head spinning, the images still vivid in my mind. Finch was standing over me, his face a mask of concern. Dingo! What in blazes happened? Your heart rate just went through the roof. I tried to explain, but the words felt inadequate, clumsy. How do you describe feeling the weight of 50,000 years of history in a single moment? How do you explain that the rocks aren't just singing, but remembering? Finch, of course, attributed it to heat stroke, dehydration, a touch of the sun. But I knew better. This was something else entirely. This was the dreaming, reaching out, pulling me in. And it was terrifying, exhilarating, and profoundly humbling all at once. From that day on, my respect for the land and for Marley's people deepened immeasurably. The Pilbara wasn't just a place to extract resources. It was a living entity, a repository of ancient wisdom, a sacred space. The hum, the singing of the rocks, was the land's way of communicating, of sharing its stories, its memories. And I, Jack Dingo, the cynical treasure hunter, was finally beginning to listen. But this newfound understanding came with a heavy burden. For every secret the land revealed, there was a threat lurking in the shadows, a force that sought to silence its song forever. And I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that my journey was far from over. The echoes of the past were calling, and they were demanding a future. But what kind of future? And what would I have to sacrifice to protect it? The answers, Cobber, were about to unfold in a way I never could have imagined. Stay with me, because the stakes are about to get a whole lot higher, and the song of the Pilbara is about to face its greatest challenge yet. You won't want to miss it. Trust me on that one. Chapter 5. Guardians of the Melody. That vision, mate, that download of ancient memories from the rock itself, it changed everything. The hum wasn't just a sound anymore. It was a living history, a symphony of generations, a sacred trust. And it made me realize that Professor Finch, for all his clever gadgets and scientific theories, was only hearing half the tune. He was dissecting the notes, but he wasn't feeling the rhythm, the soul of the song. And the more I understood, the more I saw the threats looming on the horizon, like a dust storm building on a hot day. The Pilbara, as I've told you, is rich, not just in ancient stories, but in iron ore, in minerals that the modern world craves. And where there's wealth, there's always someone looking to dig it up, no matter the cost. Word had spread, like wildfire through dry spinifex, about the echoing gorge and its peculiar sounds. Not just to academics, but to the big players, the mining magnates, the blokes who saw the land only in terms of tonnage and profit margins. They heard singing rocks and thought new technology, unique resource, something to exploit. One day, a flash, high-tech chopper landed near Finch's camp, kicking up a hell of a lot of dust. Out stepped a sharp-suited character, a corporate type with a smile as fake as a $3 note and eyes that only saw dollar signs. He introduced himself as Mr. Sterling, representing a multinational mining conglomerate. He'd heard about the anomalous sonic signatures in the gorge and was offering Finch a king's ransom for his research and for the rights to explore the area. He even hinted at relocating any inconvenient rock formations, or for that matter, any inconvenient local populations. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just about money for Sterling, it was about power, about bulldozing over anything that stood in the way of progress, as he called it. Finch, initially flattered by the attention and the offer of unlimited research funds, was starting to get a bad feeling too. He might have been a bit naive about the real world, but he wasn't blind to the predatory gleam in Sterling's eyes. And then there was Marley. She'd been watching, silent and watchful, from the shadows. When Sterling started talking about relocation, her eyes, usually so calm, flashed with a fire that could melt iron ore. "This land is not for sale," Marley stated, stepping forward, her voice clear and strong, cutting through Sterling's corporate jargon like a bush knife through butter. "These rocks are our ancestors. Their song is our song. You cannot buy it. You cannot move it." Sterling just smirked. "My dear, Everything has a price, and if it doesn't, well, then it simply becomes an obstacle. That was it. That was the moment old Jack Dingo, the cynical treasure hunter, finally shed his skin. My past life, my pursuit of material wealth, it all seemed hollow, meaningless. I'd spent my life taking, but now, standing beside Marley, feeling the ancient hum of the land beneath my feet, I knew it was time to protect, time to give back. "You hear that, mate?" I said, stepping up beside Marley, my voice low and dangerous. She said no, and when a dingo says no, he means it. Sterling laughed, a condescending bark. "And what are you going to do, old man? Play a didgeridoo at us?" "Something like that," I replied, a glint in my eye, but with a bit more impact. What followed was a battle of wits, a clash of worlds. Sterling tried everything, legal threats, bribes, even sending in a team of his own explorers to try and bypass us. But he underestimated the power of the land and the cunning of those who truly understood it. Marley, with her deep knowledge of the country, guided us through hidden pathways, showed us ancient traps, and taught us how to move with the land, not against it. Finch, for his part, used his scientific expertise to jam Sterling's equipment, creating false readings and leading his teams on wild goose chases. And me, well, old Jack Dingo still had a few tricks up his sleeve. My years of navigating treacherous terrain, outsmarting rivals, and thinking on my feet came in handy. We sabotaged their vehicles, rerouted their supplies, and generally made their lives a living hell, all without firing a single shot. But the real power, mate, came from the rocks themselves. As Sterling's men got closer to the sacred gorge, the hum intensified. It wasn't just a gentle melody anymore. It was a roar, a powerful, disorienting vibration that seemed to shake them to their very core. Some reported feeling sick, others heard strange, unsettling whispers in their minds, and a few even claimed to see shadowy figures dancing in the heat haze. The land was fighting back, using its ancient voice to protect itself, guided by Marley's spiritual connection. It was a sight to behold, a true testament to the power of country when it's respected and defended. Sterling, defeated and bewildered, eventually pulled out, muttering about unforeseen geological anomalies and uncooperative locals. He couldn't comprehend what he was up against, couldn't measure it with his instruments, couldn't buy it with his money. He'd tried to silence the song, but instead he'd only made it stronger. And in that victory, I found a redemption I never thought possible. My skills, once used for personal gain, were now dedicated to something far greater. I was no longer just a treasure hunter, I was a guardian. But the fight for country is never truly over, mate. The Pilbara song was safe for now, but the world outside was still hungry. And the next chapter, Cobber, is about how we learn to share that song. Not to exploit it, but to honor it. You won't want to miss how this ancient melody finds its place in the modern world. Trust me on that one. Chapter 6. The Harmony of Land and Soul. Well, Cobbers, after all that dust and drama, after the corporate blokes packed up their choppers and their fancy suits, leaving nothing but a faint scent of desperation in the air, the Pilbara settled back into its ancient rhythm. But things weren't quite the same. Not for me, old Jack Dingo, and not for the land, which had shown its true colours, its true voice, in a way I never thought possible. The fight to protect the singing rocks had been won for now, but the real work, the work of understanding and respecting, was only just beginning. My days of chasing glittering prizes were well and truly over. The gold I'd once sought seemed dull, lifeless, compared to the vibrant living treasure I'd found in the heart of the Pilbara. Marley, with her quiet strength and profound wisdom, had become more than just a guide. She was a teacher, a friend, and a constant reminder of the deep, enduring connection between people and country. Professor Finch, bless his academic heart, had also undergone a transformation. He still had his gadgets and his scientific curiosity, but now his research was infused with a newfound reverence, a recognition that some truths can't be measured by a machine, but must be felt in the soul. Together, with the support of Mali's community, we started something new. Not a mine, not a tourist trap, but a cultural center, a place where the stories of the singing rocks and the ancient wisdom of the traditional owners could be shared. It wasn't about putting a fence around the sacred gorge and charging an entry fee. No, mate. It was about creating a bridge, a way for the modern world to connect with the ancient, to learn from the oldest continuous culture on Earth. We'd lead small groups, not of gawking tourists, but of respectful learners, teaching them about the songlines, about the importance of listening to the land, and about the true meaning of the Pilbara's ancient hum. And the rocks? They continued to sing. But now their song was different. It wasn't just the raw, untamed hum I'd first heard, or the disorienting roar that had driven Sterling's men away. No, mate. Now it was a harmony. A rich, complex melody that seemed to weave together the whispers of the wind, the ancient stories of the dreaming, and the quiet reverence of those who came to listen. It was a song of balance, of respect, of a restored connection between humanity and the natural world. Sometimes, when Mali would sing her traditional songs near the gorge, her voice would blend with the rocks, creating a symphony that would bring tears to your eyes. A sound so pure and powerful, it felt like the very heart of Australia was beating in time with your own. I found a new purpose, a deeper richness in life than any material treasure could ever offer. My hands, once calloused from digging for gold, were now calloused from building fences to protect sacred sites, from clearing paths for cultural walks, from helping to preserve a heritage that was far more precious than any mineral deposit. I was still Jack Dingo, the bloke who loved a good adventure, but now my adventures were about discovery of a different kind. The discovery of connection, of belonging, of a profound peace that only comes from being truly in tune with the land. And as I sit here now, under the vast star-dusted canvas of the Pilbara night, the hum of the rocks a gentle lullaby in the distance, I often reflect on my journey. From a cynical treasure hunter, driven by greed, to a guardian of ancient melodies, guided by respect. It wasn't an easy road, mate, full of bumps and detours, but every step, every challenge, every lesson learned led me to this place, to this understanding. The Pilbara, with its singing rocks and its timeless wisdom, had taught me that the greatest treasures aren't found in the ground, but in the heart, in the stories and in the harmony between land and soul. So what's the takeaway, eh? What's old Jack Dingo trying to tell you? It's this, the Outback, this ancient, mysterious land. It's got more secrets than you can poke a stick at. And some of those secrets, they're not just for looking at or digging up. They're for listening to, for feeling, for understanding. The Aboriginal people, they've been the custodians of these secrets for tens of thousands of years, and their wisdom, their connection to country, it's a lesson for all of us. The singing rocks of the Pilbara, they're not just a geological marvel. They're a living testament to a profound truth, that when we listen to the land, truly listen, it sings back. And that song, mate, that's the real treasure. A treasure that'll enrich your life in ways you never imagined. So next time you're out in the bush, take a moment, close your eyes and listen. You might just hear the ancient hum, and who knows what secrets it'll whisper to you. The journey never truly ends, does it? There's always another story, another secret, another song waiting to be heard. And old Jack, well, he'll be out there listening. Will you?